In today's case, we're working with Andres, a BCG candidate who had already made it through his first round interviews and was preparing for BCG second round interviews. Andres wanted to work on his timing across different sections and doing math under pressure in a live interview simulation. As you may know, the BCG style of case interview delivery is interviewee-led. While the interviewer wants to provide information to you and see you succeed, it's up to you as the candidate to engage with good questions and ideas of where you'd like to go with the case. Andres, happy to be with you today. Welcome to your final round interview. We're ready for the case portion. You ready?
I am ready. Thank you so much.
All right, great. Let me tell you a little bit about our client. So you're on a team that's been staffed on a project with Revolutionary Internet. Revolutionary Internet is a leading ISP, internet service provider, based in the United States. Disruption in the industry from the pandemic and increased competition from innovators like Elon Musk's Starlink really hasn't been kind to the company. Profits were down significantly in 2020, and the CEO recently announced that 2021 will be a reset year. He sees this setback as an opportunity to rebound and bounce back with aggressive revenue growth. Now, within the organization, the CEO has been getting mixed messages on how to proceed, how to achieve that growth. Now, one camp is of the mind that Revolutionary Internet should ditch the internet service offering altogether and focus on their content creation. Another faction thinks the company should focus on connectivity alone. The final camp thinks that a balanced focus and approach on both is the best revenue growth strategy.
Perfect. Great. So just if I could recap some of the information that just threw at me.
Sure.
So we have that our client is Revolutionary Internet, and they happen to be one of the leaders in the US. Of course, Elon Musk is there competing against everyone. So Elon Musk with his company Starlink, it's one of our main competitors. We noticed that our profits are currently down, and we want 2021 to be a research year. I was wondering if you could explain to me what a research year specifically means. And basically within this year, we want to aggressively impact our revenue growth. And there were some options that you gave to me on the different perspectives that the company is trying to approach. But yeah, we just wanted to see if you could just clarify that one point for me first.
Okay, sure. So first, let me catch you on one piece. Elon Musk's Starlink company is really just an example of the changing nature of this space in general. Wouldn't necessarily consider it like a key competitor at this stage. The CEO of RI is looking for a reset year, yes, and all towards the goal of aggressive revenue growth.
Got it. Perfect. And then the different options that you mentioned were to either completely ditch the internet field, just focus on our content creation, or focus on the connectivity aspect of the organization. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. So we want to create some revenue growth and therefore increase profitability. So if I could just take a moment to sort of work on my framework. That's
sure.
Okay with you?
Sounds great.
Thank you.
We'll be right back after this quick message.
One of the challenges candidates face when trying to prep for case interviews is using old cases that are from case books that everyone has been using since 1995. If you're interested in up-to-date cases with real-time solutions that include level 1, level 2, and level 3 answers, and over 500 of them, you can check it out at managementconsulted.com. In addition, for a free taster, we have every month a free case of the month. So make sure that you log on, grab that, and get started today.
So this is a very interesting project because we're trying to create some revenue growth. And when I like to talk about profitability problems, you can either always reduce costs, but you can reduce cost only up to 0%. Revenue is always something that you can increase tremendously. So that's always great because it allows a lot of creativity. So now when looking at the structure that I want to work on, so I have three main buckets. The first one being my profitability. So trying to understand where our profits are being impacted and how much they're being down so far. And then this will help us understand what a new profitability structure will look like in the future. Second, the market itself. So within the background that you've provided, it wasn't very clear to me what a competitor landscape looks like. So understanding what these new changing opportunities in the field mean in terms of the competitors, and then within and then the next bucket being customers, I need to understand sort of what customers we're tailored to. So going into each individual one of them. So I'm going to try to keep it high level, and if you have any questions about the details of these, feel free to ask. It's a little bit hard in Zoom to maintain an issue tree, but in the profitability, I want to know specifically where we're being affected in our profits. Are we having increasing costs? Are we having just lower revenues, losing of the volume of the products that we sell and offer, and understanding the specific services that we provide. Within the market, it's understanding the market share and the market size of the different, the four initial options. I mean, the three initial options that you presented in the background, the internet, the content creation, and the connectivity. And within the customer, I think it's very valuable to see what current trends we can see on customers and understanding what they want and what are the biggest markets to sort of pursue and expand with our new recent year and possibilities of things that we want to do. So within that structure, I think maybe if we can dive a little bit more into the background of the market itself and the customers that I mentioned, and then jump in a little bit into the data of profitability to see what are the most feasible options for us. It's an approach that maybe I would like to pursue.
Okay. And all under the CEO's goal of aggressive revenue growth, correct? All right. So where then would you like to start?
Yes. So so I mentioned that maybe understanding the profitability behind the individual opportunities, like how profitable is the content creation, how profitable is the connectivity itself, how much profit are we losing by ditching the internet section. So I wanted to see, first of all, what our profits and I mean what the revenue is in each one of these sections and what our fixed and variable costs are within them. That will be one data point that I will really appreciate. And then the second one is you make a key point on aggressive revenue growth. So, I mean, aggressive means differently for each company. So I wanted to know if maybe you had a specific targeted amount of growth that you're expecting in a specific timeline.
Several good questions. Yes. So the CEO has not given us a specific concrete number yet in terms of the revenue growth that they're pursuing. And, we really haven't been given a lot of cost data either. So that's not really going to be a main focus of our efforts.
Got it. Okay. So if cost is not so much of a focus, do we have anything in terms of the revenue in each one of the segmentations, just to understand how our company diversifies its revenue streams?
And how would you think about those segments?
Yeah. So Initially, I think of I will think of, with your question, you mean a little bit more of like what I think each one of the segments has greater market share within our revenue segmentation. Is that what your question is?
Yeah. Well, when we say revenue, when you say segments, that could mean various different things. I'm curious, if what type of segment?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, for example, like we have within the connectivity, so the services that we provide within connectivity is, do we have, do we sell the product to larger corporations? Do we sell it to individual customers? Within the content creation, is it mainly through any specific platform? Do we receive or is there a monetization through, I don't know, through clicks, through visits, through amount of content that we sell specifically, and if we were to approach an opportunity like just completely going off of the internet industry part of it, so like how much revenue we'll be losing in that specific sector.
Mm-hmm. Lots of good questions in there. Some of what you said certainly points to the fact that we just need to understand a little bit more about this company, what the real offering is, what they're doing. So I can tell you that, Revolutionary Internet offers a low-speed connectivity service. They also do create and provide content to those customers. You could think online articles, stories, videos, and print type. Now, some of this content is proprietary. We do also partner with various content providers. This content, there's a little bit of a lead time to it. It takes 6 to 12 months to complete. But if we think about those two different pieces of the business, connectivity and then content creation, that's at least some basic level information of kind of what's going on here at RI. Got
it. Thank you. And going off in the line of understanding a little bit more of the company itself, mm-hmm. when we talk about ditching the internet field, the internet sector, what is specific part of it, or like we talked about connectivity, we offer the lowest speed connectivity for our customers. Mm-hmm. What is ditching the internet mean exactly for us?
So in terms of the one faction within the company that believes we should only focus now moving forward on content creation and no longer offer an internet service connectivity, no longer be truly an internet service provider in the purest form of that. So there is a section of the company that thinks that is the way forward.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. Well, I can see that being a huge interest, especially since the internet sector is changing so much so rapidly. Mm-hmm. So I think maybe I just wanted to explore within these two options that we currently have, and maybe as we gather data, trying to understand what other possibilities we might have for the company to pursue. Mm-hmm. So I noticed that within the content development and presentation, there is a lag in between, and it tends to be a pretty large amount of time that we will only be seeing results until later on, compared to like a low speed connectivity, which if we make changes, we can see them more rapidly in our revenue streams. Mm. So I feel like I need to understand a little bit more in context where our company stands compared to other organizations. So like if we were to ditch the internet sector, why would we do so? If we're a major player, for example, and we hold a large percentage of the market share, then it wouldn't be too feasible. Maybe we can do some tweaking around within the product service that we offer rather than just completely switching around. So I don't know if you have any data respecting the market share and the market size of the low speed connectivity and maybe the content creation as well.
Well, you did ask about our competitors, right? So I can tell you that the competition in general in this space, this low speed dial up space, really has been fierce. It's been driving the prices down overall across the market. Then we were also you wanted to look at market share, right? So I can tell you that currently RI has 45 million customers in the US. A year ago, they had 60 million customers.
Well, that's a pretty large decrease.
Mm-hmm.
That's 25% of our customer base. Last year, no. And do we expect these downward in amount of customers to keep decreasing? Was there like an introduction of a new product and they just sort of switched that one time? Or is this going to be an accelerated downward growth?
Well, we definitely know that the client wants to take this time working with us and focus their strategy on certainly mitigating that loss and reversing it if at all possible. But again, all towards revenue growth.
Got it. Perfect. So I think you bring a key point there, and it's about trying to reverse this loss in revenue, this loss in customers. So it sounds to me that the client is still open to the idea of improving its current sector on the lowest speed connectivity and trying to regain that customer base and therefore increasing their revenues there. In terms of, you mentioned that the competitors are being extremely fierce. And is it through the implementation of new products? Is it through them having lower costs, therefore reducing the prices of the products that we currently have? Can we match that at any point? So maybe if you had information in terms of the product segmentation from our competitors, how unique our products are, and if we can diversify ourselves a little bit more.
At this stage, what we know and what we're focusing on is, we believe that for a section of our clients, it really is important to them, those internet speeds. And we are at the moment just a low speed provider. But for other of our customers, they really are price sensitive. And so, yes, the overall market pressure, our pressure from our competitors has been driving down price across the board. So for these different segments of customers, we find that they have different needs.
We'll be right back after this quick break.
Have you ever heard a new digital trend and thought to yourself, okay, does this really matter? Asking the right questions helps you cut through the noise and get down to what matters most. I'm Jim Hertzfeld, host of the What If, So What podcast, where we discover what's possible with digital and figure out how to make it real by asking what if, so what, and most importantly, now what? Subscribe and listen, and together we can turn big ideas into tangible actions so you can get shit done.
Got it. And then not familiar with the internet connectivity sector, but like in my head, it wouldn't sound too hard to switch from a low speed to a higher speed. Maybe it's a couple of investment, like a one-time investment into increasing the signal in different locations. So maybe if you could explain to me what it would look like to switch from a low speed to a higher speed, if this is even feasible, or if it will require just enormous amounts of investment.
Andres, why don't I actually put that back on you for a second? Why don't you just take a minute and think about, to the degree that you understand this space, what do you think some of the costs would be associated with developing a broadband high-speed product offering?
Yeah, definitely. So let me just take that minute. Okay, so when I think about the costs, I'm thinking about a variable cost and a fixed cost. Within the fixed cost, I immediately think of how much this new technology advancement is going to cost me. I think that's going to be the major cost in this one-time approach. And I'm seeing these as, I don't know, having more receptors around the country, or having better signal transmitters. Not quite sure. And then within the variables, I'm assuming that this technology is going to create new services that we need to provide on a yearly basis. So labor is going to be divided in like technicians that are going to come in and do the repairments. It's going to be also into the volume of how the product will look like. I don't know if we provide this service through like the boxes of Wi-Fi that we have at home, or if we provide it to larger customers and companies, therefore providing more like larger capacity ones, or if it's just like through whichever way that product will look like, the cost of that volume will be another variable that I see, another variable cost that I see, and probably some R&D under the fixed cost, because it's going to be a new adventure for us. And then if we were to look at when we get to analyze the data within these costs of what it will cost to switch to a higher speed, we will then look at, okay, is this even going to be feasible with the amount of customers that we have? How many customers are they going to be switching, or we need to analyze what the return of investment will potentially be in terms of how much we invest in the customers that we will have to gain to come up to a break-even point. You also mentioned that a lot of our customers are price sensitive. So understanding that we're going to have to be within a lower range of price is probably going to expand that return on investment time a little bit more. Is going to be something that we're going to look for potentially. That being within the low speed connectivity specifically. And then within the development and presentation of content, we will also need to understand what our business model is there in terms of how much content we create, who are our targeted customers, and how the revenue streams in there look like.
Great. I think those are a lot of good ideas. You mentioned the technology aspect, the various kind of overhead pieces that are going to be involved, but also we're going to have to understand the content development piece, the advertising piece, et cetera. So I think you have, I think you've got a good base understanding of maybe what that would take. Again, today, we're just at that low speed dial-up connectivity, plus some of that content creation that we do in-house. We partner with others. But back towards our main focus and main goal here. What else do you think that you might want to understand towards the CEO's objective?
Yeah, so trying to understand aggressive revenue growth within the CEO's perspective. I can see how increasing costs under the low speed connectivity, it's definitely going to have a toll on the revenue for a while until we see changes on increased revenue. So not so much for aggressive revenue there. The development of the content is something that we already have, unless we spend a lot more money on developing better content and therefore selling more of it. We're not going to also see aggressive revenue growth there. So I'm trying to think about what other options could look like in terms of in terms of the company capabilities, and maybe if there were some synergies with any specific trends going on around the market right now that we could explore. That is a complete new venture, but at the same time, it doesn't require a lot of initial investments that we can explode into an aggressive revenue growth.
Well, it does seem interesting to us as we've looked at the trends in our current and previous customer base, looking at that and understanding that there's a segment that is price sensitive, and understanding that there's a segment that, really cares about the speed of their internet. There's another segment that cares about convenience and simplicity. So what do you think about that?
And by convenience and simplicity, we mean in terms of
ease of use of the product. Yeah, that it's easy to set up and maintain.
And I was wondering, do we have any? I know sometimes we can have a data representation in terms of how we're hitting those targets of price sensitivity, of higher speed, of convenience, simplicity. Which within higher speed, I'm expecting a low rating, but compared to our competitors, and see where we're focusing a little bit more of our sort of costs, and not to generate more costs, but maybe what we need is a restructure on our cost, our in-house costs. So, for example, per se, let me think of something on the spot. So per se, let's say we're spending a lot of money on the development and presentation of content. Let's say these weren't to bring us a lot of revenue, but it seems that high speed is what people want right now, and it's what's going to increase our revenue tremendously. So maybe shifting the cost that we currently have allocated to the development and presentation of content towards increasing that higher speed, or the other way around, it's something that we could potentially do. So I'm not sure if you have any customer satisfaction surveys that could tell us how we're being graded in the individual segmentations of the customer preferences.
Well, I don't have customer satisfaction surveys, but we do certainly know some about our client base and their desires in these areas. What we've actually found, quite interestingly, is that these needs really have a high correlation with age group. So if we look at segmentation of our customers based on age, we find that there's a section of our customer base that's under 20 years old, and for this group, they really largely are focused and driven by price. They're looking for cheap connectivity. They're very price sensitive. Then if we look at our customers that are aged 20 to 45, we find that this group is really focused on internet speed. They have a higher need for high-speed connectivity, and there's a higher desire for that broadband service. Then if we look at our customers older than 45 years of age, we find that they are very driven by convenience and simplicity of the product.
Got it. Perfect. And then do we have any information in terms of how, what percentages of customers we have for each one of these different age groups?
Yeah, great question. So about a year ago, we knew that we had 5 million customers under 20. We had 35 million customers between the ages of 20 and 45. We had 20 million over the age of 45. Now, for those youngest customers, about 500,000 of them have left in the last year. For the middle age group, 10 million left. For the highest age group, 4.5 million left.
Got it. So sorry, can you repeat under 20 what our initial value was?
5 million a year ago.
Got it. So I see that I can understand why under 20, it's not so much of our market. I mean, I'm always stealing Wi-Fi from whatever I can get it for free. But 20 to 45, a little bit more settled, people that already work from home now. We have a tremendous amount of our customers share there. In fact, is let's see, 25, 30, 60. So is a little bit more than 50% of our customer segmentation. And we see a complete decrease on it. So we have 10 million of customers that have left. And we know that from previous year or from the overall one, we had, I apologize. My customer base just doesn't add up. You initially said that last year we had 60 million customers and now we have about 45 million customers. And when we did the breakdown, we said we had 5 million under 20 to 45, 35 million, and over 45, we have 20 million. And sorry, that is 60 million. Yeah. Sorry about that. No, so what I was trying to say is we had a loss of 15 million customers in total, and that 10 million that left plays a major role there. So I think going specifically into that section will definitely create the highest impact on our revenue growth. But at the same time, when we were talking about cost into switching to a higher speed, within my understanding is that we will have to do larger investments into these specific customer segmentation. So I wanted to know, I'm a little bit tied on the part that we don't have any data within the cost itself of switching into higher speed. So maybe exploring a little bit more of what it would look like to increase efforts into, let's say, the 45 plus, which are more into the convenience and simplicity. And we seem to be doing okay in that sector. So maybe shifting a little bit of our product from the 20 to 45 into the 45, if that's something that we might be even considering. So I wonder if we have any information in terms of if are these all the same product that we offer? Do we get the same revenue from them individually per volume based, like per unit based, or like for under the 20 we offer, like, I don't know, student pricing, and then 20 to 45 we offer a more a larger package?
Yeah, there is a little bit of variability in our pricing, but just like many other internet services, it's a subscription model when the average price is about $40 a month. So, Andres, given what you know now and what you know about our objective, what recommendation would you give to our client?
Yeah, definitely. So, if I could just take a minute to...
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We'll be right back after this quick break.
One of the biggest challenges with interview preparation for consulting is knowing what you don't know. And the best way to figure that out is to work with an expert coach. You can work with someone on our team for just one session where they can give you ideas for where you can build your prep, or you can work with them for 8 or more sessions to make sure that you're 100% ready for interview day. Check it out at managementconsulted.com.
Great. So this was a very interesting case, specifically since we have a very overachieving goal, which is to switch into an aggressive revenue growth, especially when we're fighting against faster changes in technology. So within the scope of the analysis that we just did, we noticed that there is a downward growth of about 25% of the customers that we're losing. And we see that most of it is due to technology changes. So within our customer segmentation, we're losing 10 million customers that are very, very interested in that high speed point. And we think that in order for us to jump into that wave of increasing revenue, there is a potential of doing an initial investment towards switching from low speed connectivity into high speed connectivity, because we're already leaders in the US, and we can maintain some market share, and therefore maintain some of the customer segmentations that we have and increasing revenue. I think there is some need to further analyze what this initial investment will look like and how feasible it is in terms of years. But overall, I think there is a lot of opportunity to do the growth as well in the development and presentation of content.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right, Andres, how do you think that went?
So I'm having a little bit of trouble with the notion that it was very different how the data was provided. So it was like a very storytelling case to me, and I was having a lot of difficulty trying to gather that data that will help me analyze different possibilities, different options. It seemed to me that there was a lot of it was more of like a brainstorming case type of deal. I think that I'm good at brainstorming and bucketing when those questions are asked. But I think at the beginning, I lost a lot of time because I didn't really understand the background or what the company did. So then I was trying to sort of maybe fit on a structure, or trying to play along like I knew what the product that we sold was, maybe hoping that at some point you will unleash some of the answers, which I think is not the best strategy going into one of these cases. And I should just assume the mistake that I did not really understand what the product that we offer was. So I think that would have helped me jump into conclusions a little bit sooner and drive more insights within the time frame.
Yeah, those are some good thoughts. So my summary overall to you is that you did okay on this case. I can see the potential in you because of your, you had a never-ending stream of thoughts and ideas. You were very good at verbalizing your thought process, and that let me understand where you were at every point in time. However, there was a lot of, there was some rambling at points. There was some opportunity for you to be crisper and more straight to the point about what you wanted to know. And then I could give you a check or give you an X, and then we could move on. And that idea that you just gave me of not fully understanding the context and background of the case and the product offering, now that became clear to me about halfway through. But with that context in mind, to be honest, you did very well. However, you really did miss the opportunity off the top to be able to just lean into that a little bit more and to feel the freedom to lean into that. There's on one hand, I could say, oh, I feel that this is a fairly approachable case. Everybody has to get their internet from somewhere. There's kind of low speed offerings, there's high speed offerings, but at the same time, there is a lot of complexity in this space, right? So the degree to which you want to ask and you want to be upfront, you did really well about halfway through to say, I don't understand a lot. I don't have a lot of familiarity with this space. So ... If you can imagine, if you had done that off the top and go ahead and asked your questions about, just getting a better base understanding of the landscape and what the offering really was, I would have been happy to share that with you and just kind of talk it through with you for a couple seconds to give you a little bit of a better understanding. In terms of withholding slash not fully offering you information, I would rate my own difficulty in giving you this case as about an 8 out of 10. I could have been a little bit worse, of course, but in general, I wanted to see fully where you wanted to go. And I wanted to have you ask for specifically what you wanted. Now, with those thoughts in mind, let me go through just briefly chronologically through the case. Let's go through a couple of different points. So up front with the prompt and then the recap, you gave about a 50-second recap, and then I answered a question, and then you had about 15 seconds more. Overall, the length of that conversation and the length of that portion, I think, was great. The point of improvement there was in your first recap that you gave me, you asked a question about midway through. And so if you could have withheld that to the end, that gives me a better confidence in you to not just have stream of consciousness running through, right? So you give me your full recap, then you ask your question, I can respond. We can do another round of that, if you need, and then move on. You then moved into putting your framework together. And you really only took a little over a minute to put your structure together. Now, this will be on recording. You can go look back. I timed about 1:05. So that's pretty low. And so if you had any, in terms of feeling out, the length of time for that to take you, you could have offered yourself a little bit more time to do that. That would have allowed you to go into a little bit more depth into your buckets and to make sure that things were messy. The way, at least then, that you described your framework back to me, you told me a little bit about each bucket, and then you more fully went into each of the buckets. I would probably appreciate more if you would have given me the overview of your buckets first in a quicker manner, and then dive into each. I think that just when you hear it back and you rewatch this, I think that you'll agree with me on that. Then as you went through the buckets, one thing that I mentioned that I caught was in your customer bucket, you mentioned markets, but then markets was your whole second bucket. And so there was just a little bit of kind of unnecessary, I felt, overlap there, at least in the way that it came across on the page. It became evident to me at this point in the case that somehow it had been a little more anchored in your head, the concept of profitability rather than pure revenue growth. And so I tried to just plant a couple of seeds through the case to remind and to point back to the direction that it was aggressive revenue growth. It's revenue growth that we're focused on. We don't have a lot of information about costs at this point, right? And those clues perhaps could have given you the direction to then look more directly and more quickly at, okay, well, what is revenue? Like, well, how many, how is this company making money? How do we charge our customers? How many customers do we have? What do we know about these different customer groups? How do we think about the different customer groups? And when you mentioned segmentation, I pushed you a little bit because I wasn't just going to give up the full customer segmentation data. You actually were asking at that point in time about product segmentation. But the difference between our content offering and our internet, connectivity offering, because it's just a subscription model, we don't really have a lot of information about, there isn't, those things don't drive revenue necessarily in different ways, in the sense that our customers are paying one flat fee for a monthly subscription to this full, suite of offerings. And so, towards that, it was pretty late in the case then as well. You did get to the point to ask about the billing, and, kind of how we make our money, that overall, we average $40 a month. we did get to the point where I was able to share some of the customer data, and you did a couple. You got the gist of what was there, right? It was that for this middle age segment, the highest percentage of our customer base traditionally and still, but also the highest percentage that left when we think about over the last 12 months. Now we know that age group really is concerned with higher bandwidth needs and the desire for broadband services. And so there was a chance, there was an opportunity to maybe do a little bit more math with those numbers to be able to look at the percentages and the breakdown and fully understand and be able to compare that to the other segments and come back at the end and tell me a little bit more about why regaining or focusing on that segment is important in this overall goal of revenue growth. But you did come around at the end and tell me that you thought that this segment was important because we had lost 10 million customers from this segment. I think that was great in terms of that overall final recommendation. It would have been even better if you had put that into a percentage, even, based on the overall customer base or based on that segment. It would have taken it just one step further, right? And then since we know that what's important to that group is bandwidth needs, and you had done a little bit of brainstorming on the various cost components of implementing a new broadband system, then bringing those insights back into your final recommendation would have also made that final push better. We did not get to the full depth of the case, so there was an opportunity to also look at when you would think about internet service provider creating or moving into a new broadband offering, they could create it themselves, or they could kind of partner with other current providers and just offer that as a service to their customers. And so there was another piece that we could have gone into what that would have looked like to give you just a little bit more to your final recommendation about, yes, to achieve revenue growth, we want to focus on this specific target segment. That specific target segment has these needs. We know, and we would want to look at the specific costs associated with that, listing them out specifically, and then whether or not you'd recommend that they create it themselves or partner with somebody else. But with that being said, you got to 90% of the depth of the case. I think that you pulled out 80% of the right answer. We didn't get there in the most direct way, but you showed me very evidently that you were being thoughtful in your approach and in your questions. You were being very broad. You were being very creative, being very open about the way that you thought about it. But the biggest thing that I think would have helped you drive towards success faster would be to try and catch those clues from the beginning prompt about what the overall key goal and objective of the project is. In this case, it was revenue growth. And so I'm going to de-emphasize cost in my head off the bat. But with that being said, I think that, hopefully this is a good example. I think that, you're probably really ready for these interviews that you have lined up. And, with a couple more here at the end of your preparation, then I wish the best for you next week. Any other questions for me in terms of how we went through the case and what the pieces were there?
Yeah, no, thank you. This is amazing feedback. I think that just yesterday, I went into looking that now consulting firms are focusing a lot more into specific cases related to growth in revenue. So I think this is probably going to be something that I should expect in at least one of the two cases that I have. And then I did have a question in terms of, you said that you feel to have the freedom to lean into that question, into understanding the background a little bit more of what the offerings are for us. How will one ask that specific question without sounding just extremely unfamiliar with the case?
Well, I think the point here is that if you are extremely unfamiliar with the space, then your chances of being successful and going into depth in one of these cases is really diminished, right? So if we admit that off the bat, then we say, okay, what can I do about that? I can tell you, I failed one of my first round interviews when I was a first year MBA because I didn't lean into this at the beginning of the case. It was an oil and gas case, and I didn't understand the way that the prompt was laid out because I didn't understand the oil and gas industry. And in hindsight, I realized from feedback from that interviewer and then reflection myself, if I would have at the front of that case started with what you did midway through and said, to be honest, I'm not familiar with this space. I certainly, in joining this project and starting on this objective, I'd want to better understand XYZ, right? You could have started even with, what does it mean to be an internet service provider, right?
I think that's a key question.
And if that was your base level of getting caught up in it, then it's better to ask that question up front and hear a quick response back from your interviewer. You'll also then gauge their response to that if there's a little bit of abrasion. But more than likely, we all have to get up to speed when we start in a new industry. And so for you to ask a couple of clarifying questions up front to help you get your head around it, then it doesn't hold you back as you go through the case.
Got it. Yeah. I think that was my main concern throughout the case. I was regretting the entire time that I did not ask that question because it did hold me back from fully studying the different possibilities in each one of the buckets. So definitely will do that in my future cases. But thank you so much for doing this.
Absolutely. Best of luck to you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Timing did become an issue in this case example here, and we were unable to tackle the full breadth of the case. Yet Andres exhibited some high ideaphoria as well as good structure in his communication style. So there's always room to grow, even between interview rounds. If you'd like help in your case interview process or would like to simulate the live interview experience, consider working with one of our coaches at Management Consulted. Our coaches are all ex-McKinsey, Bain, or BCG consultants and interviewers who love working with prospective candidates to firm up your weaknesses and make your strengths shine. You can find a link in the show notes or read more about our offerings at www.managementconsulted.com.